One of the biggest issues, I think one of the biggest mental health issues I had back in the day, it's like, I've always been a very outgoing person, very easy to talk to. I think there's also I find that sometimes people who are like that, it's because they have dealt with quite a few issues maybe, and it's very surface level and everything's underneath. And one of the biggest things I went through is in first year of uni, so I was 19 when my dad passed away, and I put something on Instagram about him recently.
Yeah.
And I was 19, he died from cancer. I think he got told he had 7 months to live, or a year and a half to live. He died in 7 months, and he was my best mate. I've got 3 tattoos dedicated to him. We'll probably end up getting some more. And that for me was awful. I remember I was at uni at the time, and being 18, 19, you're at such, I think, still such an impressionable age.
Yeah.
The person I am now, would I have acted that way if it happened now? Probably not. I would have dealt with it very differently. But how I dealt with it at the time is when I found out I was smoking a lot of weed at the time, and I started drinking heavily, getting absolutely hammered, blackout drunk, and not a lot of people here would know that version of me, but a lot of people back home would, who were around me at the time and who helped me and were on the phone to me. And I don't think initially I really wanted to speak to anyone about it. And I remember just binge drinking constantly. I was going on nights out, drinking just under a litre of vodka Febreze, and blacking out, waking up in bed, not knowing how I got there, bruises all over me, texts on my phone, the fights I tried to start, almost got arrested, and was doing that for maybe the best part of a year. And it was awful. It was awful.
At the time, did you know all that you were doing was in reaction to that? So you knew that's why you were doing it?
Yeah, I consciously did it. Okay. I was I just want to completely go into self-destruct mode, and I didn't know what else to do. I was I don't really know how to talk about this, and at that age, being in uni, you're already going out, and I was cool, I'm just going to completely send it and just go absolutely mental. And every single night, I was just getting hammered as fuck, not thinking about the consequences, starting fights with my mates, their girlfriends, calling my mum, my dad when he was alive, crying down the phone every single night. I'd be on the floor outside clubs, lying on my back, almost passing out on the phone to him, and then after it did happen, it just got even worse.
How do you feel so you went out, got blacked out drunk, how do you feel the next morning, besides obviously being really hungover? What was your thought process? What did you do? Did you just lie there and just self-pity and then just wake up and do it again?
Yeah, pretty much. Just lie there, really hungover, feel like shit. The pain was still there. And then I think, you're so hungover, I just lie in bed just thinking about it, and then just get drunk again. That evening, I wouldn't day drink, but I'd just get drunk again and be cool, let's go out again tonight.
You obviously don't do that now. What was the point where you just decided that?
You know what? I'd have to probably ask one of my friends. I'd have to ask my mate Dan, because maybe he saw the transition, but I think it's I kind of completed it. And I feel it was, for me, it was self-therapy.
Yeah.
And to that, I did do a lot of thinking and self-reflecting and stuff like that. Maybe I did speak to my friends, but I don't think I did. But I feel I'd completed it. I felt I'd got everything out of my system that I wanted to. I'd cried every night. I'd had all these deep chats and I was drunk about it. I just felt I had nothing left.
Yeah.
Just nothing left at all. And I wouldn't recommend that to anyone, because I could have done some really stupid things. I could have ended up battered and sent to hospital by trying to start fights with people. B, I could have got run over by a car being hammered. C, I could have died. Anything could have happened. So I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. But I think a really big thing that I had a chat with one of my friends a couple of months ago. His dad had passed away, and I basically sent him a message being you're going to have all these people reach out to you to tell you, you should try this, you should do this. I'm what you are going to do, just do it.
Yeah.
And no one can tell you the right way to deal with it. If you can speak to someone while you're doing what you're doing, it will just give them the heads up to keep an eye out on you.
Yeah.
Because no one's an expert on that situation, and anyone telling you, don't do this, don't just, it's well, that's what I wanted to do at the time, and you telling me would just send me further down that line anyway. So it's a really hard thing to deal with, but I think the biggest thing that I would tell, that was a really hard time that I went through, is eventually started speaking to my friends about it and opening up about it. And even that time would be I did that, and I was getting so hammered, and also I wasn't getting drunk anymore, but that residue feeling of feeling sad and depressed about it was still there.
Yeah.
Even though I was tired of getting drunk now, I was just there with that depressed feeling, and that's when I need to start speaking to people about it. And that's exactly what I did. I just sat down with my friends, and I was just talking, and at the end of the day, it happens. Everyone's parents is going to die. You'd only hope that it would be due to, old age.
Yeah,
when they're 70 and you're a bit older.
It's like something really, really good there.
Hungover.
That you are going to deal with it the way you're going to deal with it, and you as a friend, if you go and tell them, I think it's important when you're dealing with situations like if they're in a situation like that for what you were going through.
Yeah.
For example, I think you as a friend looking at that, it's important for you to understand the type of friend you have.
Yeah.
In terms of how you're going to approach the situation, kind of help. Because some friends, if you give them that tough love, they're just going to push you away.
100%.
Whereas if you give them that tough love, there's going to be a chance that they're more likely to listen to that. Where there's others, you have to show more of a compassion and understand. It's like, okay, I don't agree with what you're doing. I can't even fathom how you're going through this situation.
Nothing there.
Yeah. But you're going to do what you're going to do. You're going to deal with it the way you're going to deal with it. But just know that I'm going to be here for you.
Could have done.
There's a fine line between that tough love and showing that compassionate love. And I think the key is really to just know that friend, because I have friends who go through stuff, and there's certain ones where I would give the compassion, but then there's others I'd be like, man, nah, like you're being a dickhead kind of thing, you know what I mean?
It's based on the situation and based on the context at the time.
Yeah.
I think it's a very delicate situation, and it's important that it's how close you are to that person.
Yeah, exactly. You got to in those type of situations, you got to like almost stay in your lane. You got to know where you stand and like how much you think they'll react to what you're saying, kind of thing.
I didn't even speak to my mum about it really.
Yeah.
I don't even speak to I didn't really speak to my mum about it at the time because I didn't want to add to her stress. So again, it was just something like I just wanted to just take on my own. Yeah, it's through interesting. I think grief brings out a lot of mixed emotions in people. Definitely. But yeah, gladly say that today, I've spoken about the situation now with so many other people, and people that I know that have been through it or are dealing with it, I always reach out to them if I know them, because this is a tangent, but when it happened to me, I had loads of random people who I hadn't spoken to in like 5 years reach out to me and like, hey, if you ever want to speak to me, I'm here. And I'd get really fucking pissed off, because it's like, you don't know me that well, and to reach out to me now because I'm dealing in shit, now you want to be there. And for some reason I took that as like some self-gratification thing. It's like to make you believe you're a good person, and it's like, you might be a good person, but you don't have to reach out to me to be my friend because I'm in shit. My friends are there for me when I'm at my highest and at my lowest. You're not a friend because you're there because I'm dealing with sadness. And I think that when I reached out to this guy, I was very open. I said, look, I don't expect you to reach out to me. I'm not saying I'm here for advice, because you've got friends and family. You don't need me for that. This is what I went through. This is probably what you will go through. If you want to write back to me, feel free. If not, I completely understand. And I think that was how I wanted to go at it, because I know how I felt when I had people who hadn't known me for 5 years saying that to me. I was like, well, do you think we're going to become best friends off some grief
I get that one. My issue with
that's just my opinion.
My issue with that one is like, okay, maybe you haven't spoken with this person in 5 years. But you used to be really good friends. You know what I mean? So if, for example,
no, I wasn't even good friends with them.
What were you friends in school? So were
just knew me.
Just random people.
Just knew me.
Yeah. So like, for me, if I was to go through something like that, and I have friends that I was like hung out with 5 years ago that I don't really speak to, partly because I've moved so far away and we just don't really communicate. But if something like that happened to me, like, if they reached out, I'd really appreciate it. Not that I expect them to constantly be, I don't know, messaging me or giving me advice, but it's like, we had a relationship at one stage.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's almost to say,
I think maybe I was just bitter at the time.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, because if you've had some sort of relationship with someone, and maybe at some stage they may have thought that you were friends at the time. Maybe they thought that your relationship was somewhat, amicable, and you would talk the odd time. I feel that them reaching out is just saying, hey, I know we haven't spoken, but we used to have conversations. We may not have been best friends, may not have been friends, but I used to walk past you in the hallway in school, and we'd have a chat, this and that.
Yeah.
Just letting you know.
But I think that's a fair point.
There's a good chance that you're just in a stage where obviously you're grieving, and that was just your initial reaction to that.
I wouldn't see it the same way. I don't think about it the same way now, but like in the mindset I was then, I took it as like very.
And I think you're allowed to feel like that.
Yeah, I was just very bitter about getting messages like that off people that I wasn't even friends with.
Going through a trauma like that, I don't feel like you need to even justify some of your reactions. You're allowed to do that. But I
probably did take it as like quite bitterness at the time, But now looking back at the situation, I can understand where you're coming from. I think it's a good point that maybe people just want to reach out to be a good person.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be some kind of...
Because I'm sure you probably have friends that have gone through or will go through stuff that you may not have spoken to in 4 or 5 years. Like you said, that guy that you messaged, and you messaged him even though you don't speak to him, so you've had the same thought that those people may have had, like, oh, I haven't spoken to Dan in ages, his dad just died, you know what I mean? Like, I should just say that, you know, I'm thinking about you.
Yeah.
And that's it. Move on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I guess the main takeaway from what I dealt with at the time is that whatever you're going to, a situation like that, I think whatever you're going to do, you're going to do, but just share it with someone. And I think, you know, how you deal with that kind of issue is, how I dealt with it is just speak to someone around you. Yeah. Even if it's just one person, just have like one go-to person.
Of course.
Because it could stop you doing something really stupid. And, you know, for me, I don't think it was ever going to be anything more than that. But for someone else, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been like a drug overdose. It could have been something a lot worse. So I think a really important thing is just speak to even just one person. Have like one talking buddy who's just every day. You just at least tell them what you're going through.